Hi, a big welcome to everyone who is joining us tonight at our webinar, Supporting Your Teenage Girls at Home. We are so glad to have so many of you join us tonight. It's an absolute pleasure to be able to run this tonight and to have so many parents sign up to this webinar. So a big welcome to you as you're coming in now to the webinar. I can see that the waiting room is reducing, which means more people are coming in. So welcome and thank you for your time. Yeah, basically, I just want to say a big welcome. Our chat function is on, and this is an opportunity for you to pop in your name, pop in your location if you're comfortable with that, just to share a little bit about, who you are and who's joining us and from where across the UK tonight. And we'd love to kind of hear more about who is joining us in the room. Always really lovely to hear and to see where people are coming from. Lovely. Thank you so much. So we've got Oxford, we've got the Black Country, Essex, oh, fantastic. Fife, Bedfordshire, Macclesfield, yay! I'm currently in Macclesfield as well right now as we speak. We've got someone joining us from Oxford, North Devon, Buckinghamshire, fantastic. Really good to have so many of you here tonight. And just really exciting to see that across the UK, so many of you are interested in supporting your girls and raising them well. And so it's a real delight to have you here. Lots and lots of Oxford, brilliant, fantastic, which was the home birthplace of Know Your Worth. So that's a real privilege to have you here tonight. So tonight the plan is we're going to talk a little bit around some ways that we can be supporting our girls at home. They deserve it. And we're also going to hear tonight as well from Sarah. Sarah Seed is joining us tonight, and she is an expert in lots of various things, but she is a self-discovery coach. She is raising teenagers herself, and so she brings that really sort of precise kind of, I suppose, viewpoint as well tonight. So we're thrilled to have her, and you're going to hear a little bit more from her later this evening. It's also worth adding that in the chat function, if you've got questions that might be coming up for you as I'm kind of sharing through the webinar tonight, then feel so free to pop those into the chat. And hopefully towards the end, we'll have some space at the end for some questions. My name is Debs. And I am the CEO and founder of Know Your Worth, which is a charity dedicated to supporting teenage girls to grow self-esteem. And we recognise that we work with girls, but we also see the value in being able to support parents, professionals, those of you who maybe work in the NHS or work in local authorities. There's so many ways that we can help support our girls. And so this is why we hold these kinds of events. It's worth adding too, if you want to find out more about the work that we do, or you want to stay up to date and stay connected with everything that we provide and the things that we do, including free resources, webinars like this one tonight, at the very end, there'll be a wee form, and I'd love it if you could just tick the box to say signing up for our mailing list, because we'd love to stay connected with you, and we're really grateful that you've come along tonight. So thank you. So as I said, I'm Debs, founder of Know Your Worth. Know Your Worth is a charity that was launched back officially in May 22. And the main way that we support teenage girls is through our self-esteem course. It's 8 weeks and it covers things like emotions, relationships, body image, consent, friendships, lots of the things that our girls are going through in society today. And it's all with a focus on growing self-esteem, because we recognise that if we grow self-esteem, we're much more likely to make good decisions, to make good friendships, to live life well, and to have purpose and meaning. And so much of what we do is to support girls for that very reason. And so the turnout tonight is significant. We've had so many people sign up, and lots, those that can't make it will get the recording this week as well. But it's a real opportunity for us to come together to show that we're invested in the lives of the girls that we know and that we love. And some of you tonight here will be parents, some of you will be carers, some of you will be coming with girls in mind that you support and you love. And so that we hope tonight is really helpful for you. I'd love to start tonight just by saying you're not alone. I think so often when parenting gets tough, or when you find yourself in situations that feel really tricky, it can be tempting to feel like you're the only one, or maybe that not many people are experiencing hard times. And I'd just like to encourage you that you're not alone. We have had quite a few families and parents reach out to our charity and to ask questions around what are some of the things we can be doing to help our girls. And the first thing that I want to say is to come with this with self-compassion yourself. We're all learning. There's times we're going to get things wrong as parents, but also what an opportunity to learn and to grow. And I'm reminded of the phrase, it takes the village to raise a child. And gently to encourage you to consider, who are your people? Who are your village? Who are the people that can be the surrogate aunts or the uncles or the people in the lives of your children that can be that support network, not only for them, but also for you as well. And tonight you might be thinking of one girl in particular, one teenage girl, maybe your daughter. You may be thinking of a few. You may be a grandparent. You may be an adoptive parent. There's so many different kind of roles and ways that we can support our girls. And it's also worth considering for some of you, it might be a breeze right now and going really, really well, and you're feeling equipped and empowered and that, parenting is going well. But for others, we know that the struggle is real, and we know that sometimes parents can really grapple and find it tricky to navigate the teenage years that their children are going through. And our focus and our expertise at Know Your Worth is the girls. And so our hope tonight is that we're able to share some of the main ways that we might be able to continue supporting those girls at home. And so just today, speaking to someone here in Macclesfield who said, I feel like my daughter has changed overnight. Her daughter is 13, and we talked a little bit more about it. And I think for her, she just had this sense in which something has shifted and it just feels like we're worlds apart. She hardly acknowledges me when I walked into the room, and I used to be her world. And I think so often that can be the case. And sometimes that's a very, very normal thing for our teenage girls to go through. Lisa Demure, who's a psychologist in the States, talks about the notion of clinging and rejecting, which is a really common dance that can happen with teenage girls and their parents. It's almost like, she describes it like they're in a swimming pool and they're learning to swim, and they're getting better and better at swimming and moving further away. But actually, they still like to know that you're on the sidelines, and they still come back to the water's edge to see you, to know that you're there before they swim off again. And I think as a parent, it can feel quite challenging, because it can feel like it's this sense in which, but you were always close and now you're not, and I think sometimes we're not maybe fully prepared for the changes that can happen in the lives of our teenage girls. And so just that gentle reminder, if that is you tonight, you're not alone. We're going to move on just to some of the potential struggles that might be presenting in our home life. And it's things like silence. Sometimes there might be that distancing or withdrawal, which can be a real change from the preteen years. Maybe your daughter was absolutely vibrant and vivacious and constantly chatting, a little chatterbox. Maybe she was, maybe she wasn't. But sometimes the teenage years can bring some distance, and it can bring some withdrawal. And you might find that that's a real change. Other potential struggles that you might experience could be emotions raging, anger, shouting. We've heard stories of girls, just the emotion is just so, so, so high that, screaming, doors slamming, things breaking. It could be friendship issues, and this is a really, really common one with lots of the girls that come on our Know Your Worth courses. Fallouts, comparison, sometimes quite unhealthy behaviors around maybe trying to please a friend to win them over, and then next thing they're falling out, and there's sort of power struggles and dynamics that can really come into play there, that can be so challenging for our girls to navigate. You add into that mobile phones, and if it's already tricky in school, and then there's WhatsApp groups where girls are being included and then excluded, and then there's beef, there's issues, there's drama, that can all just create so much anxiety and angst, because one of the key things that our teenage girls want is to belong. They want to belong, they want to feel seen. And actually, that's a human desire that is in all of us. And Brené Brown talks about the difference between fitting in and belonging. But as teenagers, it's so hard to even consider what true belonging in our own skin looks like because we're so primed in our teenage years to look out for our tribe, to look out for our people. And so that's a really normal kind of, experience that a lot of our girls face. You might find that there's isolation. Maybe she's in her room a lot. Maybe there's extreme phone use or disconnection from the wider family. Undiagnosed learning needs, maybe there's some elements there that are really tricky to manage and understand and work through. Then there's the whole issue of identity and who are we as people? Who are our girls? There's potential struggles around body and eating, gender, sexuality, and I've mentioned that fitting in versus belonging as well. Self-harm, things like cutting or hitting, withholding, that's it too. Sometimes it's not so much big actions that desire that attention and focus, but actually sometimes it can be as simple as saying, I don't deserve that. I'm not going to buy that thing. I'm not going to eat that. I'm not going to do that thing because I don't feel deserving, which we know connects into self-esteem. All of it is so connected. And then there's anxiety, the rates of anxiety have rocketed, sadly, and it's things like sometimes specific phobias, but other times it's rumination, it's perfectionism, it's anxiety to even get out the door, to get to school. Recent stats would suggest that the number of children who are persistently absent from school has nearly doubled since the pandemic. A lot of our girls are struggling, and you see the connection point there between those anxiety, those anxious thoughts, that anxiety, and then accessing education, and then it becomes this vicious cycle because getting into school is a struggle. So then we get behind, and when we get behind, it's then even more of a struggle. And that can lead to problems with that school attendance, refusal to go, which in turn impacts low mood, which we know connects in with low self-esteem. So all of these things can present in the lives of our teenage girls. They may not always. And some of you, as I say, could be on this call having a swimmingly good time, and that's brilliant, and we're thrilled for you, but it's not always the case. So if we move on a little bit further, just to say, Dr. Lisa Demure, who I do quote quite a bit because she's absolutely fantastic. She's the clinical psychologist and author. She says the single most powerful force for adolescent mental health is strong relationships with caring adults. She then goes on to say, we need to meet teens more than halfway. I also want to add on that, though, that there is space for self-compassion in this as well. We're trying to figure out the road ahead. The parenting that we do now is so different from parenting 50 years ago, 80 years ago, 30 years ago. So it's coming in with that self-compassion too, as well as extending that compassion to the girls that we love and live with and care for. We're going to move into three key points that as parents, I hope will be helpful for us all. And the first point I'd love to draw on tonight, before we hear from Sarah, we're going to, go through these three key points. The first one tonight is active listening. Some of these might feel really obvious. Some of them might be things that you're already doing. And if you are, fantastic. And actually, as I'm talking tonight, if you're thinking there's something else I'd love to add into the mix here that I have learned, please feel free to type that in if that's helpful. So active listening isn't just ordinary listening. It's more than that. It's actually exhausting if you truly actively listen because it requires something of you. It means that you have to bring yourself into a place and a space where you are fully set on really absorbing what the person in front of you is saying. And you might say, yeah, but she doesn't open up to me. She's not going to share things with me. What can we do to make her opening up and sharing more likely? If our response, and we've all been there, I'm sure, if our response is, yes, well, you just need to fill in the blank, or why are you worrying about that? That's so silly. Those kinds of things can cause anyone to shut down, let alone the girls that we're raising. And so it's really helpful to consider, how can we be non-judgmental? How can we hold an open stance and an open space that feels safe, that feels, actually, I can tell my parents, or I can tell whoever it is at home, and I know they're not going to straight away, you know, launch into me. And I think having that safe space is really, really, it's tricky, but it's really important. Not coming with our own ideas, our own assumptions, what we think they should do. Also, just as well, a gentle encouragement around, it's not for us to solve all of our children's problems. And that feels so counterintuitive. But actually, we want to raise humans to be adults who thrive, who can take responsibility for their lives, who can problem solve, and who can work out some tricky situations. And in order to encourage that, we actually have to allow the space when they're younger for them to breathe, for them to consider the thoughts themselves, and for them to work their own way through some of these things. Now, obviously, that's different from things like bullying, or if your child has a serious concern, we want to act appropriately, don't we? But it's just that sense of, where are the areas where I can actually just hold space, actively listening, empathize, and just allow that to sort of be what it is. Things like responses like, thank you for sharing. That sounds hard. Gosh, yeah, that's quite challenging, isn't it? What are you thinking? Or what might be helpful? Those kinds of things they land so much better than us kind of going in telling our girls what to do. And we've noticed this on our Know Your Worth courses. We do our best. One of our values is to have a non-judgmental space. And that is what we really love to create as much as we possibly can. So I think with true active listening, we refrain from judgment, and being available is key. We have busy lives. We have so many other things going on around us, which are important things. Work needs to happen for many of us. Responsibilities need to happen for many of us. It might be that there's more than one child at home. It might be that we're fostering or adopting. The list goes on. There's so many things that are really important and take up time. And I think it's considering, well, if that's the case, where are the places and spaces where I can show up for my daughter? Where are the places where actually I can hold those 15 minutes or half hour to just be there, and to be that listener and to be that space? At this point as well, I want to just draw attention to the difference between reacting and responding. I think sometimes as a parent, there can be that strong desire to just react because it's triggering us. Because what does that mean about me if my daughter is having a really hard time and is falling out with girls, or whatever the situation might be? What does, or I don't get on like that, I wouldn't have that problem, or there's various different things, angles we can sort of come at it from. But what does it mean to actually, just in that, think about how it is for her? How can we hold that space and let her just breathe and be who she is, taking it seriously? Um, okay, so also I just wanted to touch really briefly on phones. I think it is a bit of the elephant in the room, and to not draw attention to that or mention that, given the fact that it's so central to our girls' lives at the moment. And I think, yes, the challenge is out there. There's so much going on now in society around youth, and adolescence has been really brought up so much since its release on Netflix. And there's so much out there at the minute about phones. There's a documentary called Swiped on Channel 4. There's so much awareness being raised about devices, screens, phone use. And I think that is really important that we're considering that, because it is playing into anxiety that our girls are facing. But I also think it's worth us challenging ourselves on this as well. On the Swipe documentary on Channel 4, the presenters brought together some parents into a room, And one of the parents said something along the lines of, now that my daughter is on her phone all the time, I feel like I'm losing her. And it was just that poignant moment of, oh my goodness, how many others are feeling the same way? And then I thought to myself, yes, but also, how many children are losing their parents? I had my daughter who's 6 come up to me in the kitchen recently and say, Mummy, can you just not be on your phone? And it really challenged me because I felt like, gosh, all my daughter is seeing in that moment, even though it was something for her, a medical appointment that I was sorting. But regardless, what they're seeing is us looking at a device. And I think, again, it's a gentle challenge around what are we modeling? Because what we model is so significant in the lives of our family as well. Um, Regarding active listening, which I'm still on, is that kind of trying not to be too afraid of their emotions. Sometimes it can feel really unsettling as a parent to see your child upset. It can be really unsettling to see them absolutely raging and angry. It can be almost sometimes as parents, some of us may want to sort of try and sort of, I suppose placate and settle the issue. But actually, discomfort isn't a bad thing, especially if it leads to problem solving and change. And so, yeah, trying where possible to hold our own emotions in place and in check so that we can respond rather than react in those moments. And my last little thought around active listening and that sense of sort of holding that space for the girls is trying ourselves to not operate at maximum capacity. Because if we're at maximum capacity 24/7, it can create quite a frantic home life environment. And sometimes things just are frantic and they have to be, and that's just life. But also, can we be proactive around that frantic energy and atmosphere? Can we create a little bit of calm? And I suppose I'm reminded of weather systems and the climate. What's the weather like in your home? How would you describe it? Is it sunny and bright? I mean, probably not all the time, let's be honest, because we all will have harder days and tricky times in our family life. Is it always thunderstorms and lightning? How would you describe the weather? Because that can be quite a good indicator as to how your family life is feeling, which in turn impacts every single one of us in that ecosystem. And so that's just a little thought as well. Is there anything we can do to allow for more pockets of calm to support our girls? Okay, point 2 is maximizing connection points. This is an important one because this is where we can actually do something to change the tide. Okay, so this is all about finding the ways that we can connect with our girls. We have learned in running these Know Your Worth courses that rapport and connection, I would go so far as to say it's everything. It is so significant. And I know that for our teenage girls and parents, connection points don't always happen and can't always happen. And that's the reality. However, there are things that we can do to maximize connection points and to almost, I suppose, just make good of those moments and begin to see the patterns, begin to see the rhythms, maybe begin to see some of the things that are really working out well, and then thinking, how can I replicate that? How can I create more space for those kinds of moments? And so if you're a parent here today and you're thinking about a scenario or a situation that made you smile with your daughter or the girls that are in your care, have a little think about that now. What did it feel like for you? What do you think it felt like for her? And then keeping that all in check, what was it that actually made that possible? What was it that actually made that a reality? I'm just noticing in the chat, the C.S. Lewis quote is actually fake. It's true, but he never said it. Thank you for drawing attention to that. I appreciate that. We'll have to find out who did say that. So those connection points, what is it that we can do to create them? Because we can get onto something good and we can begin to replicate it, which in turn impacts the relationship. We can proactively make decisions in our life. We can almost preempt what are some things going to be like. And for example, it might be that you've noticed, if you have a car, if you drive, and you're driving home and your daughter's in the front and or in the back, and she's chatting to you and she is chatting nonstop, but you haven't heard her speak most of the week. It's then thinking, actually, can I be the one to do the pickup? Next week when she's with her friends, can I be in the car? What, if it's not that, but there's a group of girls at home and they're chatting in the kitchen and you're part of that because you're there and they begin to open up and they share a little bit. Okay, I'm going to seek to make myself be more in the kitchen when those potential conversations are happening. It's thinking a little bit strategically and it's thinking a little bit, I suppose, wisely around where can those points be found? Where can I connect with my daughter? And then what can I do to make sure that's a regular thing? There's lots we cannot control. There's so much as parents we cannot control. There's so much that we can. And there's also a gentle nod here as well to boundaries. Boundaries are really good. Boundaries can help us to raise our children in such a way that they understand what it is that we need as well, and they know that there are limits. So that's no bad thing. And just in terms of as well, that kind of maximizing connection points, it doesn't mean that you're always 100% on and available and free and ready. And it's important actually, I think, for our girls to recognize that mum has, or dad, or whoever it is, has hobbies, has a life, has other things going on. A friend here recently in Macclesfield shared with me that what she says to her daughter, which I thought was absolutely fantastic, is that if her daughter feels something is really, really important to her, she has a safe word. And that is the word that she uses whenever she really wants 100% active listening, maximizing connection points with her mum. And so her mum has now learned that even if she has got a million and one emails to respond to and has other children in the home and is cooking dinner at the same time, that her daughter has used that word. Therefore, I need to create space in the next very short time frame to really sit down with her and take 5 minutes, take 10 and listen. Oftentimes she tells me that what she shares, she sort of thinks, doesn't seem like that big a deal actually, in terms of it's not, life shattering, but it's significant for her daughter. Therefore, it's significant to her. And I just love that kind of sense of kind of showing up and being there and maximizing those points. Um, Eating together, data would suggest that eating together can be a really, really good way to help relationally across the board, including grades and psychological health. Now that doesn't mean it's this gorgeous family where everybody's getting on like a house on fire. Even if relationships are strained, eating together is proven to significantly help over time. You may or may not have meals together as a family or with your teenage daughter or daughters or children, but the stats would suggest it's a useful place to start, and it might take some time, and it might feel clunky, and it might feel awkward, and it might not feel like it's working. But it's worth trying if that's not the case in your home life as it is. And we try these things. And I suppose as well, I think about, things taking time and having patience. I planted beautiful daffodils in my garden months ago. They're showing up now. Things aren't always immediate. And actually, that's a good thing. That's how nature works. That's how we're wired. Things take time. And so maybe it's that sense too of how can we be patient in the wait for some of those changes that we hope for and long for? And what are we proactively doing to make it more likely as well? Okay, I want to just move on to the last of the 3 points, which is, and this is probably really obvious, and you're probably thinking, well, yeah, unconditional love. That sense of loving our daughters no matter what they do or say or how they act or how that might reflect on us. Sometimes I think the times we struggle most with unconditional love is when we're concerned about maybe how it looks on us, how it might come across for us, how challenging it can be. Because it is hard and it's not always supposed to be easy. But actually, so many of the things in life that are worth working for and worth fighting for are hard work. And I think it's very safe to say that our daughters, our girls, deserve it. And so that unconditional love, acceptance is huge. Not trying to constantly change someone to fit into a mold or to be a certain way, but to unconditionally love them for who they are. And that's that. And you think about our key role as parents, it's not to change them, it's to love them. And this also can release a lot of the expectations that we sometimes place on the relationships with our daughters, and the relationships that we have with ourselves as well. What does it look like to let some of those expectations gently lift? And the fact that every single one of you have come onto this call tonight, and there are so many of you on here, would suggest to me that you are so invested. You're clearly, looking for opportunities and ways to find out more to support your girls even better than you're already doing. And so that in itself is connected into that sense of love for them and wanting to be there for them. And unconditional love doesn't mean that we do everything for our teens and we take away all the hard experiences. But we can be with them in it. I think that's the difference. Before we hear from Sarah, I just want to say one last piece on the unconditional love side of things. I think the greatest gift that we can give our girls, and our children for that matter, regardless, is our steady. The greatest gift that we can give our girls is our steady. Because actually, if we're in a place where we are there and we're constantly there in an unconditional, loving way, that is one of the most reassuring things a girl can experience, because the landscapes are constantly shifting beneath her feet as it is. The relationships are constantly changing. The social media situations and fallouts and all of those sorts of things going on. Relationships, the school situation and classes and lessons and puberty and our bodies and all of those things are like tectonic plates shifting constantly. You being there and showing up and being that steady is one of the greatest gifts that you can give to your girl or girls. And I know that that can be really hard, because bringing you back to the very start, that picture of the girls swimming in the pool and moving and coming and going, it's the clinging and rejecting and the clinging and rejecting and the clinging and rejecting. That rejection can feel hard. It can feel hurtful. But how beautiful to know that you're still steady on the sidelines, that you're still there. Should she want to speak, she may not, but to know that you're there should she want to is amazing. I'm going to now introduce you to Sarah, who's going to come on. As I said, Sarah is a self-discovery coach and a mum to teens. And she's going to share with us tonight a little bit as well around her experience in supporting teens and also the work that she does as well around self-esteem too. So welcome, Sarah.
Thank you. It's lovely to be here.
So glad to have you tonight, Sarah. It's really honestly a privilege that you've come and join us tonight to share more as well. The reason, we're just so keen to get you on is your work, the experience that you have to offer, and also the fact that you are a parent of teenage girls. So I'd love to hand it over to you and say, tell us a little bit about yourself, Sarah.
Thank you. Yes, so I am a self-discovery coach, which is very much focused on self-esteem, actually. It's very much about really know who you are, which I think is really important for our teenage daughters to really know who they are. So it works. It's very much hand in hand. But I am also a solo mum to two teenagers. I've got a 14-year-old son and I've got a 16-year-old daughter. So I firsthand know how challenging it can be. I really resonated when you said that overnight it can feel like they change. Both my children overnight, as soon as they hit 12, 13, it felt like they changed. And it's really hard as a parent to hold that change. So I'd love to share a little bit more about what's helped me, what's helped my daughter, and some of the things that have really grounded me to be that safe space too.
Amazing. Thank you, Sarah. And in terms of raising teens, whether this is your own personal experience or in general, what would you say are some of the sort of the main challenges that you've been aware of in raising teenage girls?
I think specifically for my daughter, but also what I've noticed around the mums that I coach and their daughters is anxiety. You touched on anxiety. Anxiety is a huge thing. Um, Body image is a massive one as well. Friendship issues is probably the one that my daughter struggled with the most. Feeling misunderstood. Struggling with school. Both my children have had points where they've had school refusal. They've just not wanted to go in. Um, all of this impacts their self-esteem. You've got all of this going on. I think the negative self-talk can be there as well, can be quite present, unless they're having that model not to have that negative self-talk. I think that can be quite eroded by people around them, when there's a lot of other people that are either bullying or being quite negative. So I think for my daughter in particular, it's been anxiety, friendship struggles, sometimes not being able to keep up with things at school or being spoken to a certain way by a teacher, in quite a disrespectful way to a child, not appreciating that they're young adults. I think all of these things can have an impact on them, definitely.
Thank you, Sarah. And in terms of your experience of working through that time, are there any advice or tips or thoughts around what we can be doing as parents to almost, I suppose, prepare ourselves if we're not quite there yet? But for those of you who maybe are, what are some of the things that we can be doing to kind of look out for signs, support the girls? Any advice around those kinds of things as well?
Yeah, absolutely. I think one of the things that I'm very grateful for that I did before they hit teenage years is, I've always tried to have a lot of quality time. It's hard, it's exhausting, it's relentless. I've also got my own business as well, and I'm on my own with them a lot. So trying to ensure that they have some quality time with me as a one-to-one, so that you've built that connection up before they hit the teenage years. It doesn't mean that they're not going to suddenly withdraw, because my daughter did. But having that quality time brings them back. It is a very much like a dance that you said. And I think when you're a parent, it sometimes can trigger your own struggles. It's interesting how you mentioned rejection. Sometimes we can sabotage ourselves with our own struggles with rejection. And so then when you see that playing out with your child rejecting you, if you've not done that work on building your own self-esteem up to deal with that rejection and be that safe place, that can be hard. So for me, it was making sure I'd done a lot of work on myself to prepare me for it. That's been crucial for me, which is why I'm so passionate about what I do. One of the things that I think is really, really powerful to do as well, though, is to know what their love language is. So there's an actual quiz that you can do. It's by Gary Chapman, and it's called the Love Languages Quiz. And for me, that's been a really integral part of understanding, because my children's love languages are very different to mine. So what we could internalize as rejection is just they like to receive love in a different way. So there's 5 different love languages. And I think understanding their love languages, I got them to do the quiz with them when they were kids, like 8, 9. I also got them to do it once they were teenagers. And that for me has really helped, because I'm very aware that they have different love languages to me. So I need to show up in what is right for their love language. So that's been a big help.
That's really, really helpful. And for some of us here tonight, love languages might be something that's quite new. Um, Trying to remember off the top of my head, what are the 5? Because there's things like, isn't it quality time? There's gifts, there's words of affirmation, and then there are 2 more.
So there's quality time, gifts, words of affirmation, acts of service, and physical touch.
Amazing. And knowing, understanding your child is so significant. Your teen is so significant, isn't it? I think when we think about parenting, sometimes it's tempting to parent, just parent in line with who we are. but it's also it's that dance. It's the both. It's the yes, it's important for us to show up as who we are, but also that sense too in which how can we understand our children and parent in line with who they are too. It's trying to sort of meet. And that's why that quote is so significant from Lisa Demure that talks about we've got to meet them more than halfway. We've got a question in the chat. Is there a link to the love languages quiz? I'm going to ask that our tech support has a little look at that to see if he can get it into the chat for us as well tonight, and hopefully that will come through at some point. I love that you touched on our own self-esteem and the significance of that. I think it's safe to say that I talked about one of the greatest gifts that we can offer is our steady. I think in a very, I was going to say a close second, but I think they're joint first, is also the greatest gift we can, or one of the greatest gifts we can offer to our teenage girls is how we model growing self-esteem ourselves. And Sarah, you do a lot around that, don't you, with adults? And I suppose, yes, within that, what are some of the key ways that we can continue? Because obviously we're experts with the teenage girls and growing self-esteem is like our bread and butter. When you work with adults, given there's so many parents and carers and adults on the call tonight, what are some of the top sort of just top tips around maybe ways that we can start to think about that ourselves?
Yeah, I think for me, probably the biggest thing that I've had to learn and still learn is that I need to be the role model, that I can show up in all these ways. But if I can role model a woman that likes herself, that doesn't body shame myself, that is happy with who I am, then that is a huge thing. That's always been really key for me, that to model that. Um, but to model somebody that can have the hard conversations with people, that don't avoid the hard conversations, to not fall into people pleasing. That's a big one. It's a big one that if our daughters aren't role models, somebody that can set boundaries and can say no and can walk away from things that aren't right, then how will they ever know how to do that? So we need to role model somebody that can do these things. I think another important thing for me is to role model somebody that a woman that is puts self-care as a priority, that she's not last on the list, because again, we're then otherwise our daughters are believing that they always need to be last on the list, and of course that's going to impact their self-esteem too. Role modeling good relationships with partners, all of these things I think are really important. For me, I think the best thing that we can do for our daughters is to work on becoming that role model as best as we can. I would like to say on that, because I think another key thing is knowing what your core values are and teaching your daughter what her core values are. I think for my daughter, her knowing her top 3 core values has guided a lot of really hard decisions when it's come to friendships, when it's come to boyfriends, when it's come to even the course that she chose to do at college. Knowing who she is and where she's going in life is so powerful. So I think if we can role model that, and then we can teach our daughters that for me is a game changer. And I can see that with my daughter, how when I've brought her back to her core values, it helps her make the right choices and decisions. It's when we're not living aligned with those. And I just wanted to share that, because for me and my daughter, that's probably been a very powerful thing to learn.
That's amazing, Sarah. And Sarah, I suppose every relationship's going to look different for every mother with her teenage daughter. What would you suggest to, so clearly you're able to have that dialogue, to have those conversations with your daughter. If, for example, that things are tricky at home and the parents are really struggling to even be able to reach out to get to that point, what then? What are some maybe thoughts or tips or advice around that?
Yeah, and I absolutely hear that. It's not all been roses with my daughter and her struggles, and there has been times when that rubber band and they've moved away, and I felt her shut down with me in that connection. But I think my mantra was just never give up. Never give up, Sarah. And I wear a bracelet that says little by little. And so every day I would think, what's 1% that I can just show up a little bit for her today? Even if it's just stood talking to her in the kitchen, or going and sitting on her bed and asking her something, or sometimes it would be like a little massage before she went to sleep, or making sure she went to bed with a hot water bottle, or buying her something. I used to do a lot of these little self-care boxes and just put them in her bedroom, or write her a little card, or try and praise her for something that she did, or praise her for being and doing. And I think all those little by little really add up, because they can feel it. They can feel and sense that energy that you're
Mhm.
showing up and you're always there and you're not giving up no matter what.
I love that. I think you know yourself too. If you're with someone, you can tell. You can tell if they want you there or if they don't. I've been in houses before where I just have gently known, probably best I go. But I've known where I felt loved and seen, and the company has just been, I've been wanted to be there. I'm invited, I'm welcomed. And I think it's the same, what youth are no different. Teenage girls are no different. They will feel it in their core. And that's what I love about, like, I'm just thinking of examples of when we run Know Your Worth courses. The girls, sometimes when they first come through the door, they're a little bit like, what is this? Within week 2, week 3, they're like, oh, I love coming. And I think it's that, how do we help our teenage girls to see that they matter and that we're really glad they're there. We are so glad they are there. And I love those examples that you've brought up. I think as well, another thing that came to mind for me as well was humor. Like little moments where you can have a giggle together, where something funny happens and you just catch each other's eye, and it's just that's a glimmer, that glimmer that comes up. And I think, we're actually going to be giving out a free resource to all of you that are on the call tonight, and anyone who signs up, and that's going to come through this week, hopefully tomorrow, if I'm on it quick enough. And on there, we talk about glimmers. We talk about where are the glimmers, and they often are kind of aligned with when you maximize connection points, because glimmers are those moments where you almost just see that sparkle. It's like, I've seen her smile, I've caught her eye. She said something to me that I didn't know she would trust me with, or there's so many examples, something she might do to help you as well as you doing things to help her. And I think that is what is so beautiful. I'm just seeing some comments here in the chat. People, I think there was a comment there, someone mentioning how helpful this has been tonight, and it's really resonating. We are so glad. That is why we're here. I've also just another comment to say it's so important to be thought of, to be known, and to be remembered. It's so true. And I think there are ways that we can do that. Mindful that will look different for every parent in terms of how they parent, and every child in terms of, the children that they are raising. But it's definitely worth thinking, what are some of the ways that we can be that and show that? So that's really, really helpful. And just touching as well on, you'd mentioned boundaries. Boundaries are so good. Tell us a wee bit more about why boundaries are good, Sarah. I'm mindful of time, but I just love to ask that last question, because I think so often we can think, because people come across as gentle, that there isn't that backbone. And Brené Brown talks about that sort of soft front, strong back. We can
Yeah.
still be approachable and warm and hold boundaries. Tell us a wee bit more about that as well, if you would.
Yeah, I think for me, boundaries has been key. Something that I'm aware of time as well for yourself, but there's something I really want to draw attention to, is that I think we often don't realize there's around 20% of our girls are highly sensitive. And I work specifically with highly sensitive women, and a lot of their daughters are highly sensitive too. When you're highly sensitive, you're much more easily influenced or become a people pleaser. And the anxiety can kick in and all these things. So sometimes when our teenage daughters are um, ruminating or perfectionism or anxiety and all these things, sometimes there could be an element of that highly sensitive nature within them too. And so the boundaries are key for any daughter, but especially for our highly sensitive girls. And boundaries for me is, what will I tolerate and what won't I? It's a very clear boundary. And I literally get people to like draw a line. I've done this with my daughter as well, like draw a line on a page. What are you happy to tolerate? What will you tolerate in that friendship? What will you tolerate with that boyfriend? But what won't you? What is just this is a no-go, and beyond this I will not go. And that's it, teaching them the confidence to say that and to mean that, I think is so important. It's an art, it's a skill, but it's a really important skill to teach our daughters.
It's so true. And I think as well, not only are we modeling the boundaries, but when our daughters pick that up, how wonderful for them to recognize, hold on a minute. No, I don't, I won't be treated like that actually. And that's where self-esteem is so central in all of this, because the chances are if your self-esteem is secure and grounded, you feel comfortable saying no because it doesn't feel right in your inner being. You know it in your core. When self-esteem is low, oftentimes, sadly, our girls can find themselves in situations where they're taken advantage of, where they are not comfortable but doing it anyway. And oftentimes on our courses, especially the week where we look at relationships, we talk about no is a complete sentence. And we do not need to, and that includes consent. We talk about that as well on the course. And it's all of these sorts of things which feed into self-esteem in general. And this is why we are so set on self-esteem and raising it in our girls, because we recognize it affects everything. Everything from the decisions they make, the relationships they have, the jobs and opportunities they feel worthy and worthy of, all of it is connected. And so it's been so great, Sarah, just to hear your take on it all tonight as a mum of teenage girls and in the work that you do as well. I'm mindful as well, you do have an event coming up on Saturday. Feel very free to just pop the link in. It's on Saturday, isn't it? It's an event for
Yes.
women.
Yes, it's an online event, which is specifically for women to understand what their core values are. So if there's any mums here that don't, are thinking, well, what about my self-esteem? What about my core values? And then I can teach my daughter that. I'm literally going through your core values and uncovering the 7 key principles of self-esteem so that you can be that role model for your daughter. So I'll drop the link in if that's okay. Thank you.
Absolutely, please do. And also, I just want to say a lot of this is a lot of Sarah's work obviously is centered around women and empowering women and mums. I had noticed in the sign up that there are quite a few men that had signed up tonight, and I just want to say thank you. I just think your presence here really matters as well, and I just wanted to just say that tonight. Okay, just mindful of time, so there's a few last things we want to kind of share. Just a couple of ways that we might be able to continue to help you. One is the example that Sarah has just shared. I'm mindful that the link, yeah, there we go. There's a few ways that Know Your Worth would love to continue to support you and help you as well. We've got webinars and things. There's one that we did back in January as well. We had a great turnout for that, and that was for professionals, but in there, and those that work with teenage girls, but in there as well, there was quite a bit, some nuggets in there too. We had some really good guests as well on then. So please feel very free to pop onto our website to go back to that and to have a little listen in your own time. We like to provide resources and we recognize that these are helpful. We get so many downloads of all of these kinds of resources that we've got on our website. And I would love for you to pop on there and download as many as you'd like to share with your girls. And maybe you could work through them together or alone. And then there's the Parent Care Journal, which I'm going to get across to you this week. And that's going to be something that you can work through. It covers the 3 key points that we looked at tonight as well. So you could easily listen back and go through it again if that was something that you were interested in with the recording. Another way that we can help is our training. We are now training others across the UK. So it's the next slide, that's the one. To become esteem builders. You might have your daughter go to a school and you're thinking, gosh, it would be great for their pastoral leads to run these Know Your Worth courses because they cover all the stuff that our girls are going through. If that's you, we're going to actually just pop a link, another little link in the chat, and it's our Connect form. That Connect form, please, if you would, it'll take 2 minutes to fill it in, but it's just a chance for you to tick on there that you'd like to sign up to our mailing list if that's something that you're interested in, and we can keep you in the know with all of the events and free things that we're providing, as well as an opportunity to sign up and register interest to either book in a course, to get trained, or to pass our info on to others who may also want to get trained and run these courses anywhere in the UK. We've really had growing interest, and it's a really exciting time for our charity here at Know Your Worth. So we just wanted to just let you know about that as well at the end. Mindful of time, delighted to be finishing just before 9. I want to leave you with a final quote, and just wondering if we can get it's probably already in there. I'm seeing lots of messages coming through now. So feel free. We'd love it if you could fill out that Connect form for us. Helps us to understand as well the needs of the girls that you know, and find ways to tailor the work that the provision that we can bring as well. So please do fill that in for us. We'd be really grateful. Teenagers almost always rise to meet us when we treat them as the deeply insightful souls that they are. What a quote to end on tonight. It's a privilege. It's a privilege for us to be able to run these webinars. It's a privilege for us to run courses with these girls that we're talking about tonight. And we hope it's a privilege for you to raise the girls that you're raising. And if there's anything else that we can do as a charity, do please reach out, do email us, do stay connected with us. We'd really, really love to hear from you. And we're just really grateful that you've been here tonight. The recording will come out this week. I think someone had asked about that in the chat. When it does, feel so free to share it far and wide. We're operating across the UK now with our training, so anywhere and everywhere, send out the word. We want to help as many as we can to help their girls to grow self-esteem. So thank you so much for attending tonight, and all the best.